Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you this evening. We have been working on this Gottlieb Shipmates pinball machine for a while now, and just been working through it. I've seen a problem that I wanted to illustrate for you. I thought you might be interested. So this thing, this is the balls played stepper unit, and it looks like somebody's been messing with it. So I took it off, cleaned it up, and then I put it back exactly how it was. But if you look, see how it looks like these three screws can be loosened and that can be turned a little bit, and see how it's at one extreme. Now you're going to think I just rigged it up like this. No, it was just like this. If you go back and look at the other videos, that's how they had it. And it looked weird to me whenever I saw it, and so I put it back exactly how it was, and then I decided, you know what, it'd kind of be cool to make a video to see if that is right or if that's wrong. Because what happens is somebody takes that off, they didn't mark where it goes, and then it's kind of tough to tell how it's supposed to go back on. So if you were to turn it, you could turn it where these connections here, these little, I call them snowshoes, but these little posts were touching stuff up here or over here, just depending on how you turned it. And then as you rotate it through these adjustments, you can make it where the little shoe, instead of landing right on that rivet, is on that rivet. You know, so it's kind of hard to figure out where exactly is that thing supposed to go. And people always say to mark them, but this one had no markings on it, and from the factory, usually they were not marked. So it is back all the way right now. And I'm going to show you how to figure this out with the schematics if you run into this problem on one of your pinball machines. Now, it doesn't have to be a Gottlieb. It can be a Williams, a Bally, Chicago Coin, Stern, whatever. They all have a similar setup with their stepper units. You can see here on the 0 to 9 unit, it's the exact same type of thing. There's just a wheel that goes on there somewhere. You can see how I've mounted it. It's more towards the middle of the adjustment, but I still have it where the little snowshoe is right on the rivet. Right, so let's get the schematics and figure it out. I'm going to show you how to determine where that goes. Notice there are 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this one is its own little connection back to whatever's connected to this plate. So there's one set that's connected, 2 sets that's connected, 3 sets that's connected, but since there's 2, that may actually be 4, and then 1 here. So as this thing turns around, it connects different rivets together, like whatever this one's touching to whatever this one's touching. And then it turns and it connects 2 other rivets, and it turns and it connects 2 other rivets. So if it's in the wrong spot, the thing won't work right. And whenever we fired this thing up on the first video, it didn't work right. So I think this thing might be off. So let's check it out. Okay, folks, so we have the original schematics for Shipmates here. Now, if you need schematics for your pinball machine, no matter what it is, go to the Pinball resource and they can sell you a copy of about any game ever. It's a pbresource.com. But we have these. If we didn't have these, that's where I would find them, okay? So let me show you we're going to look at the schematics. It's a big old sheet of paper. We've taped it back together because it was falling apart. Basically, I'm going to look through it and find all of the areas where it mentions the balls played unit, which is what we're messing with. So one of the areas is right here. Balls played unit. So see how it says that it has rivets from 0 to 19. Okay. And then see the 2 little arrows that are actually touching the 2 rivets? So what that is showing you is one of those sets that we were just looking at on the back, right? So one of those sets will connect in the home position, which is where we are, a blue and black wire to another wire that's yellow. But which one of the 4 sets of those is it? Who knows? I mean, you might be able to figure it out. but that might not be the easiest way to tell. So let me find some other place. Oh, here's another one. So here is another area, balls played unit, and it looks like on this one that it only has rivets from 8 to 19. Actually, it skips some. Look, it's 8, 9, 10, and 11, and then it skips some, and now you've got 16, 17, 18, and 19. So what's that mean? Well, they're saying that this one little jumper from one snowshoe to another one will only connect at position 8, 9, 10, and 11, and then position 16, 17, 18, and 19. Now look how they've drawn this. They've drawn it so it's not actually touching the rivets, which is different than over here where it is touching the rivets. So why is it doing that? It's because the schematics are drawn in a certain position. So I believe it's drawn in the position where you're at player 1 on the first ball. So we should be able to prove that here in a minute with the light bulbs. But player 1 on the first ball. So if you were at player 1 on the first ball, 2 of those little snowshoes would be connecting those 2 wires together at position 0. But over here, you wouldn't be at position 8 yet. You'd be at position 0 because that's how all of this is drawn. So when they draw the 2 arrows representing the little jumper, they can't draw it connected to 8 because it's not. It's connected to 0, right? Once you get up to position 8, those would then be touching. All right, so that's 2 of the places. So that's another one of the snowshoes, the little jumpers, I guess doesn't connect to anything until he gets up to position 8 and then connects to something. Maybe not the easiest one to figure out. Let me see what else I got here. Here is another one. Balls played unit. Okay, so here is another jumper that connects 2 wires at position 0. A white and blue wire and the same yellow wire. Yeah, no, red and white wire. A white and blue wire and a red and white wire. And it looks like maybe those are only connected at position 0, 1, 2, and 3, and then it's never connected again. Oh, whatever. That seems confusing too. Here is another one that does the same thing. So at position 0, it's connected to something, and then at 1, 2, and 3, it's connected to something. Now notice how one side of the rivet, or the jumper, is connected to this red and white wire, which comes up here and connects to this one. So you've got one jumper with 2 pins. One goes over to this, 0, 1, 2, 3, and then the other one goes over to this, 0, 1, 2, 3, but they're different. Well, that's probably that one with the 3 pins. That's probably this one. So this is probably the red and white wire, and at position 0, this is connected to one set of rivets, and this is connected to another set of rivets. And then if it turns 4 positions, there are then no more rivets. And if this turns 4 positions, there's no more rivets. I don't know if we can prove that. I don't know. So, is that the best way to set it up? Probably not. That one's kind of confusing too. So let me see what else we got here. All right, that's the only ones that I see, except for my favorite, the light bulbs. Now, if you're working on a pinball machine and you've got problems, a good place to start is the light bulbs, because the light bulbs will tell you what relay is on and blah, 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 blah. It's just easier to figure out. Over here, you get a lot more. This is the side that's the relays, okay? So that side, you get a lot more math going on. I call it math. So it's like this switch has to be closed, this switch has to be closed, this switch has to be this way but not that way, and this stepper unit has to be here. It's just very complex. On the light bulb side, it's always much easier. So if you look at this part, it says balls played unit. So you have one wire that is slate and green that comes through the XB relay. I think it's the last ball relay, I think. Maybe. But anyway, you got one wire that comes up, and then connects to the board. And look, it's not the jumper looking thing, right? It doesn't look like that. It's just one wire. And we saw one on there that was just one wire, right? So that ought to be the easiest one to figure out. So one wire, somewhere on there is one that is just one wire, and it should be pointed to a blue wire when the first ball is in play. So if you look at what's going on here, as this turns, the ball play unit, this position is ball 1, player 1. This is ball 1, player 2. This is ball 1, player 3. This is ball 1, player 4. And then it will go to ball 2, player 1. Right? Ball 2, player 2. Ball 2, player 3. Ball 2, player 4. Ball 3, player 1. Right? So that's how they have it set up. If you're playing a one-player game on a Gottlieb, you will hear it be it right here, and then at the end of the ball, it'll go click, 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 because you just skipped player 2, 3, and 4 and went up to what they're calling position 4, which, to confuse you even more, is actually position 5 if you look, because there's a position 0. But you get my point. So at the end of the ball, the first ball, if there's a two-player game, it'll go click and step up one position. The ball's played unit will step up one position. But if it's a one-player game, it'll go click, 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 and step up to here, so that it lights ball number 2. So my whole point is, this is the easiest way to line the thing up. Since we know we're at the 0 position, there should be a way to put one wire on the first rivet in a string of 19 rivets, right? And it will have a blue wire attached to it. This wire will be slate and gray. So let's see if we can find anything that even approximates that. All right, so if we look, these two are jumpered together. So that's one set of that jumper. This is the one we were talking about where it might actually be 2 of them. This is one jumpered together. And this is one jumper together, but very close to it is also this one, which is just one wire. That must be our light one, right? But you can see that the wire color is not slate and gray. But that's because they're using it as a jumper to here. This metal plate behind it has a metal boss, I would call that. And then there is a metal shaft that goes through there. So let's lay this down. Okay. So all of this is metal. Metal, metal, metal everywhere. And if you look, attached to the metal frame, all of this is metal. Attached to the metal frame, you have this wire. Now, here's the problem that you run into on these old pinball machines. What color is that wire? Dust brown. That's what it looks like to me. That wire is dust brown. So here we have an obviously red wire, and then there's an obviously white wire with a black tracer on it. Okay, this one is probably a black wire with a red tracer on it. That one below it, who knows? So you kind of got to play this game. Could that be a slate colored wire with a gray trace on it? Slate and gray are really similar. So, I mean, it could be, right? So I think that's correct. And we kind of know it is because it's connected to our one pin. So all of that metal connects together through here, and that is just grounded to it, basically. I'm saying grounded, but it's not. It's shorted to it. It's not actually ground. If you follow this back, sometimes if you follow the wires back to where they go in the wire loom, you can see it a little bit better. But on this one, it's just also dusty. You can't really tell. But we're going to have to guess that's our slate and gray wire. Okay? And now, when we're at the home position, it should be connecting that wire to this rivet. This little shoe should be on the first of 4 rivets that are soldered together that have a blue wire going to it. So then you run into this little problem. Well, so I don't drop the thing. You run into this little problem. How do you know what wires are on which rivets? Look at all those freaking rivets. But you can see one little issue here. See the one post there, the one in the middle? If you look at the home position, it's not even on a rivet. So if we're correct and that's the right one, it's off one position. That would explain why it didn't run right whenever we started it up in the first video. So it's not even on a rivet. So we're not at position 0, we're at before position 0 if we're in the right spot. Now, here's the fun part. Look at all of these wires on the back side of this thing. Look at all this crap. And you can barely see the rivets. Right? So I can just tell you, because I moved it around earlier. I don't know if I can show you. Let me see if I can get it where you can see it. Let me figure out which one is which. Let me get it in my head. Okay, so this is the first rivet. Right about there, right? This is the second row of rivets. And then inside there is the third row of rivets. And if you carefully move those wires around, there is a blue wire soldered to 4 rivets in a row. And then it changes and the next 4 rivets are separate and they have an orange wire soldered to them, and so on and so on. So basically, we're off one position. That snowshoe, that little connector, should be on the next rivet there. Which kind of makes sense if you look at this. Because this, you could turn it very easily to the next rivet. So let me loosen those up and I'll show you. Alright, so I have loosened them. And if this thing will cooperate, I'll turn it by hand. And you kind of just center them on the rivets. Okay, so that is the home position. Right? Now you can see it kind of lines up in the middle of the adjustments. That is not always obvious though, because that little boss in there that I was talking about has a set screw on it. And if you take that apart, that can turn anywhere. So you may have a situation where to get it to line up, it is at one extreme or the other of the adjustment. But from the factory, it probably wouldn't have been like that. So if they haven't ever adjusted that boss since it left the factory, this is probably about more how it should be lined up. Like I said, I lined this one up as well. And you can see it's not quite as centered, but it is fairly centered. So that should change our situation just by getting it where the game starts on the proper reset position with the balls played unit. So I'll tighten that back up and we'll move on. But I hope that helps you figure out how to set that up. We had a friend on our channel, Randy. If Randy's still watching, Randy several years ago was having a hell of a time on a Bally Hocus Pocus that someone had taken that off of, and he couldn't figure out where to put it back for its home position. So you really just got to try to Sherlock it out and figure out, well, what's the easiest one? On this one, the easiest is to figure out that one pin. It's just the easiest thing to track down. All right, folks, so now that we got that straightened out, we need to clean all the score reels. This is the most horrible part of the whole thing. I'm going to have to start doing reverse psychology on myself. Boy, I love cleaning the score reels. This is my favorite part. Here we go. Oh, man. All right, so I'm going to show you how they work. So, and they're different for each era of machines, but this has got this famous rat trap. I think it's called a rat trap. Why do they call it that? Because I can get my fingers stuck in it? I don't remember. Maybe it's not called that. Maybe it's called a rat wheel, hamster wheel, whatever. We're on 0. So normally whenever you have a score, basically this coil pulls in. You know, the game tells the coil to pull in. A relay shuts somewhere on the score relay. it pulls this coil in, and when it lets go, there is a little lever in there that pushes this little cog around that the wheel is attached to, and it changes the score. Okay, so all of this, it has this end of stroke switch here. So see how that switch is closed? And so when this goes all the way in, the little thing opens it, and then whenever it goes back, it's done. End of stroke switch. What do they call that? What does that say? The lock-in switch. So basically that, by lock-in, they mean that once it starts, the score relay will stay on until that switch opens. And that's to ensure that this has enough juice to get it all the way down. Okay, so on 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now when you get to 9, something crazy happens. There's a switch over here that is open as well. It's not connected. But when you get to 9, see that little bump on the cam there? So when you get to 9, that will close. Bam! Now that switch is closed. Now that didn't do a thing. When that switch closed, nothing happened. But the next time you score a point, instead of just giving you a point on this to move it from 9 to 0, because that switch is closed, the same switch will give you a point on the next one. Okay. Now, another thing, there's switches over here. These are always closed. Now there's 4 switches, but it's really 2 switches. They just have two blades on each one to make sure that that works right. Okay, so at position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, those are closed. But whenever it goes to 0, click, they open. And that's how the game ensures that it resets back to 0 at the beginning of the game. It just keeps resetting it until that switch opens. So it's a very similar concept to how all of them work. So on the ones like this, it depends on how deep you want to go into it. You know, like on the ones on this game, the middle ones don't have the circuit board on it. I'll show you another one to show you the circuit board. But 4 of these don't have a circuit board on it, so I used one of those just to show you because it's easy to see the switches from the outside. The actual metal, on some of these you can wipe them down with just, you know, soapy water. By the way, soapy water is basically Windex, so Windex works pretty good on that. Or you can use wax. So sometimes whenever you spray Windex or some kind of cleaning chemical on these, it will make the ink run on that paint. And it'll just wipe the numbers right off of it. So you got to be careful and kind of test a little spot. Maybe test the 9 or something. You know, something. Just figure it out. But if you get one where that's an issue, if you use wax, wax is actually a cleaner. It'll clean it right up, and it won't take the paint off. Okay, so I'm going to wipe this one down a little bit, and then we're going to take another one apart that has the little PCB on it, so you can see how that works. All right, so a lot of these have this little board, which means you can't get to the switches to clean them, and also you need to clean this board. So I'll show you how to do it. Ignore this E-clip and the washer under it. Don't mess with that. You're going to take these 3 screws off. Now, if you look really close, well, I'll show you here in a second, but take these 3 screws loose, and all of this is going to pop loose when you do, but I'm going to show you how it keys back in. So there are 3 parts. This is the bottom part. Now, if you notice, see the 6 circles in the middle there? There's 2 sets of 3 in a triangle shape. Okay. If you look really closely, one set of 3, they're all the same size. That's the one that the screw goes through. And then one set of 3, 2 of them are smaller than the other one. That's how it goes on the cam. Okay? Because it has to go in a specific spot so that this wiper is in the right spot, depending on what number you're at. Okay? And then here is the score reel itself. It's just a stamped piece of tin, basically. And if you look really close, It has the same scenario. 3 of the screw holes are big. That's the one that the screws go through. And then there are 2 small ones and a big one. And just to clarify, the big one points at the 5, just to make it confusing. But you can figure it out. It can only really go one way. And then this is the top one. They're all the same, so you don't have to worry about putting it on wrong. So all you got to worry about is lining those up with the cam whenever you go to put it back on. Now, there are 3 little, Donnie would call them breastises, but he'd use another word. But there's a little thing that pops up here. Boy, I might get canceled again. Look, there's nothing wrong with saying that. There's little things that pop up here that this lines up with. Now, if you look, see, that won't work because you can't put the screws back in the holes. So you got to get it just right to where the larger one, which is, well, this one, lines up with the larger of these 3. Really, what can I call them? Bumps. There's a really good word for it, but I'll get banned from YouTube if I use it. Donnie would do it, though. My brother, Donnie. So see that little bump there? What's that look like? See how that one's bigger and that one's smaller. So this one's like an A cup and that one's like a C cup. Okay, so you got, whenever you line it up, you have to line that up right. That's the whole secret of it. Look, people, I know a lot of older people watch my channel. I'm on to y'all. I know what y'all did back in the 70s. So, you know, I know you're not embarrassed by this. And okay, I'm gonna stop talking. Okay, so basically if you get that off, then you have to take these 2 screws loose so you can get this board off. But all that's really going to allow you to do is to pull this up out of the way so that you can access the switches down there. Now, since we left this C-clip or E-clip on here, we don't have to worry about this cam moving out of the way, right? So if we use the little plunger, we can test to make sure it's moving right. And this series of score reel works really well. It's just they're kind of over-designed, so Gottlieb eventually made them simpler so that they could save money, I'm sure. But if you take these 2 loose, you can get this out of the way so that you can clean the switches down below. Okay, so I got it loose and was able to clean the switches underneath with a little file. Got them all cleaned up. But people, I'd like to apologize for saying the word. Well, I didn't say it, but you know what I wasn't supposed to say. Well, you know what I'm trying to say here. I shouldn't have said that. Sometimes I take it a little too far. I'm just going to edit this out. Hope I remember to. You know, a lot of times I'm a couple weeks ahead on these videos. So, boy, if I don't edit this out, I'm going to be in big trouble. Okay, so I'm going to clean this up, and then we'll put some little bit of dielectric grease on it here, my favorite. Dielectric means it's good for this stuff, okay? So we'll put a little bit of that on there to make sure that cam can turn well. If you get this all in the wrong spot because you don't get it on the right lovely lady lump there, it'll just basically, it'll still work, but you won't have the right score. So it won't reset to 0, it'll reset to 4 or something like that. But let's clean this up. All right, so I cleaned it up a little bit. Got the grease off of it, and then I hit it with a little bit of sandpaper. Ready to go. And I put the dielectric grease on it. Good to go. So now we got to mount all the stuff back on it. So you can see it a little better like that. That's the big one. There's the small ones. All right, back how it was. Now you can test it actually if you're limber here. Whoa. Since it all moves so concentric in there or whatever, you don't have the problem that you have on the later ones where they hang and stuff. You hardly ever have these that hang at all. It's just and then of course since it uses the actual long switches, They're big old blades that move. It's kind of easy to move them, so you don't really have the issue that where it hangs on 9 or something like that. You might have the issue where it doesn't score on 9 because the switch is not adjusted right, or it won't reset properly because the switch is open or something like that, but not too much. So that one is nice and clean, and we'll put it back, and then I can't wait. I have 8 more to do. All right, let's see here on my YouTube analytics, age and gender, this video since uploaded. Oh, I'm fine. I'll lose 1.6. Look, I'm fine. There's nothing bad's going to happen. Let's see, age. Okay, underage. Not one per. Okay, yeah, we're good. Hey, we don't have to edit it out. There's no kids watching. We're good. Should I start doing clock videos in the middle of my? I can't do that. I'm gonna keep doing the pinball video. All right, so I cleaned every score reel. It took forever. It's like 8 weeks later. But I got them as clean as I could possibly get them. Physically, and the, you know, all of the, everything that we looked at there. So now we get to do the coolest part. We get to turn the thing on and see if they all reset to where they're supposed to be. Now, it shouldn't do it when I plug it in, but sometimes it does depending on what relays what. So I'm going to film plugging it in. That way, if they all reset to 0, I don't have to put them all back on 1 to get it on video. What happened? Who was it? I heard something roll. Probably a pinball. So, what happened? I don't know. Weird stuff going on here. It turned on lights. I don't know. Looks like we're in the middle of a game or something. Okay, let's see if we can get them all to reset. Here we go. This is going to be epic. It probably hasn't done this in a long time. I told you it was going to be epic, and you thought I was over... People, there's no hyperbole here. That was the coolest shit that's happened in months around here. Did you see how quick they all went? Bam, done, perfect. Think about that. I took them all apart and fixed them just like that to where they worked perfect the first time. My skills are growing. All right, so I do see though that we've got something going on here. This middle one ain't in there right or something. See how it doesn't line up? See how wonderfully these line up and these line up and those line up. So I probably just got it clipped in wrong. Okay, you know, we haven't really looked at it with the lights on the playfield. Let's kill these you know, these LED lights. Ugh. And see what this thing looks like in the dark with all the original old lights in it. Okay, so there's a few lights hanging on there. About half of them look like they're burnt out. I don't know what that thing in the middle is. I think that's where the title is, where it says Shipmates. I keep thinking Ships Ahoy, where it says Shipmates. And I believe we're in gameplay. The first person is lit up. What is this, though? Is this the game over? Ball 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or something like that. Shipmates. Game over, maybe? Player 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe this is game over. Maybe, well, there's one over there too. Maybe that same player shoots again. And maybe this one says ball in play. I don't know. I don't have the back glass in it. You know how you can tell though? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we're right in the middle of a game. Here we go. I have no shooter. Click. It's trying. What happened? There's a coil somewhere not having a good time. Okay. So I dropped the ball in the out hole, which made the score motor turn, which turned off whatever coil that was. I don't know what that was. But we got some issues there, don't we? And then look here. But that maybe that's like that. Yeah, it's not. They're not all the fan ones. See how the spacing is different between the three? You wouldn't think there's supposed to be that little red one though, although there's one on each side. You'd think they were all supposed to be like that. But we'll look at a picture of the flyer and figure that out, and then we'll order some parts to make this thing beautiful, like it ought to be. Look how the part over the famous roto target is metal. It's not plastic. So you're hearing a little bit of humming. You know, that's what we were working on the previous video. There's just some coils that are on while the game's in play. Okay, so usually, just because of, I'm sure there's a great reason for it, but usually that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, and that's 5. I don't know why they do that, but I'm sure there's a good reason. And this is one of the ones with the ball elevator, so you got to press this to get to the ball. Let's see if we can lock her back on. Okay, so did you hear how it turned off? It's not humming now. So that was some kind of alternating relay or something. Sometimes there's a relay that makes the lights on one side of the playfield on, or the lights on the other side of the playfield on. So this, like 10 points when lit, it might be this side's on, and then when the alternating relay goes the other way, this side's on. So it could have been that one. And usually whenever you score up some points, it makes it bounce back and forth. So maybe that was it. See, now we're on presumably ball number 3. I wonder if they do that so that if you're playing a 3-ball game, it wouldn't really matter, I guess. I don't know why they do that. But I'll bet someone in the comments does. What's going on? Oh, what? Yeah. Okay. When I unplugged it, that moved, which is the 0 to 90 unit. So what's probably going on is the end of stroke switch or something wasn't working. Let's see if we can figure that out. So it's hard to tell, but I believe that this is the add 0 to 9 unit, which is that one that we saw move after we turned off the power. So that was stuck. Why would that be? If that's correct, I think that's correct. Maybe I got the wrong one, but the in relay, when it pulls in, makes that happen. As long as the score motor doesn't turn to the point where motor 4C opens, right? So, if the in relay were to lock on, what would this do? It would go, right? So the in relay is the 1-point relay. And by the way, folks, excuse me, if you don't have these schematics for your machine, we had someone email the other day wanting to know where he could get some Williams schematics because he couldn't find them online. Well, there's only a couple places you can get scans of schematics, but these Gottlieb ones you won't see very many scans online. The way to get those is go to pbresource.com, the pinball resource, pbresource.com. They have about every schematic. There's probably a few they don't have, but I'll bet he's looking for them real bad. If it's a Williams EM from the 60s, I would imagine he's got every freaking one of them. So this gentleman was emailing looking for schematics for a Williams EM from the 60s. I told him, look, Pinball Resource is going to have it. And a copy, you know, these things are huge. These are the original ones that we've taped back together, but they're huge. They're, you know, almost 4 feet wide. big old long schematics, and they make copies, not a little sheet of paper. They make copies just like the original one. So if yours are missing, get a hold of them. They'll send you a really nice set. They're about 20 bucks, something like that. But really, it's well worth the price, people, to figure out stuff like this. So the 1-point relay is sticking on, or the switch on the 1-point relay, or something like that. But probably the 1-point relay. So let's figure out how the 1-point relay pulls in and how does it turn on. And that'll help us fix our little problem here. Okay, so here is the 1-point relay in. Now, also I had someone email the other day. By the way, folks, we get tons of emails. So if we don't answer you back immediately, email us back. We don't mind if you email 20 times. Email as much as you want, but if we don't answer you back immediately, we just haven't had time yet, especially if it's a technical question, because I like to look it up first, right? So here is the in relay. My theory is that's stuck on. So if that were to stick on, that would do just what it just did. We can also, if we go look at the front of the, oh yeah, I think I know what's going on. Isn't that what our score was earlier? We had a 2 at the end, didn't we? I believe. We'll see if that's correct. So what can turn on the end relay? The gentleman emailed me and he was reading some schematics and he had it a little bit wrong because he had an area where a line crossed like that. Well, that line there does not touch that line, or they would have drawn this little dot. So if there's no little dot, those two are not connected. It's just they're drawn, laid out in such a way where it looks like they are, but they're actually not. So if the lines cross, that doesn't mean they touch. There has to be this little dot, right? So this in, you have 2 lines there, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have 7 ways to score a point. Okay, now one of them, I had another gentleman emailing, wanting to know, how do you tell which of the switches is the hold or the lock-in switch for the relay? Well, it'll have usually the same letter. So like if the in relay, a switch on the in relay can't turn it on because it can't turn itself on. But once it's on, that switch will hold in. So that's what's going on. This is held in by its own switch. And they do that until one of these other ones opens. So see, on add first ones, if that score reel pulls in, it should open that end of stroke switch that we looked at. As a matter of fact, I think that may be the actual one we looked at. It should open that, which would kill power through the in relay and turn it off once whatever turned it on was turned off. So look here, see all these little things? These say 1-point contacts. These are all of your playfield switches. So they're listing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They say that there are 8 switches on the playfield that if you simply touch the switches together, it's going to turn on the in relay. The in relay is then going to hold itself on because of a switch on it until the score reel actually turns and gives you the point. So that's why I was looking to see if we actually scored the point. Since we're on 2, we must have scored some points, but maybe now it's misadjusted and this is pulling in but not opening that switch and allowing the in relay to turn off. And again, we know the in relay is stuck on, or we theorize that because the 0 to 9 unit, we saw that it moved after we turned it off. It's because it was stuck in, the coil was stuck in, but the things actuate and move when the coil lets go. So that's why it went click after the power was killed. Right? So that told us which one it was. So it could be one of the 8 switches on the playfield is sticking. That could be, if let's say one switch is stuck closed, well that would also make the in relay stay on. No matter what all this up here was doing, that would still be stuck on. Okay. So if that's not it, you also have this way, which is dependent on the A relay. So the A relay is probably the alternating relay that I was talking about a minute ago. It either is connected here or it's connected there. If it's connected here, you're going to go down to like the 10-point relay instead of the 1-point relay. And then what makes it score is the F relay. Now, I know this stuff's all confusing, but it's really not. It's very down to earth. The F relay is the left pop bumper relay. I just heard something. Oh, you know what I heard? I heard the clock chiming. I guess. I believe so. Okay, so that's the left pop bumper relay. Now see this little dot here? I think those may be connected or something. See how there's two there that aren't connected? I think maybe there's a line missing. So the left kicking rubber, that's down at the bottom, the kicker, the slingshot, and the left pop bumper. If either one of those come on, it's going to give you a point. Same with the right ones. Now, if the alternating relay goes the other way, then it's 10 points. So it just depends on how ours was. It did kind of seem like we hit the right kicking rubber or the right pop bumper the 2 times that it did it. So that very well could be it. So those would give you a in relay pop. And then you've got this way, which is dependent on the J relay. So what is going on here? The A relay is the alternating relay. The J relay is the pop bumper control relay. That says JJR. Let me see here. What is the J relay? Yeah, pop bumper control relay. Okay, so I think what that's saying is these A relays are either turning it on a point or 10 points. So if it's on 10 points, then the power comes down this way. Let's see here. Oh, okay. It looks like you got 2 things going on. This is the alternating relay is bouncing it from left to right, but the J one is turning it on or off. So it's making it either 10 or 1, depending on, because it said 10 when lit, and then it bounces back and forth. So it looks like sometimes it's bouncing back and forth, but it's not lit, so you don't even know. And in either instance, it would give you 1 point. So let's say that it connected through here, through there, that would give you 1 point. Or it connected through here, that would also give you 1 point. But once it comes, if the J were to flip, then when it connected through here, it would give you 10 points. And if that were up here, it would only give you 1 point. So it looks really tricky. It's not really that tricky. It's just it's gates, basically. Okay? All of you folks that do software or hardware stuff will recognize all of this. All right, so that's another way that so these 3 here all have to do with the pop bumpers and the left and right kickers. Okay? It's coming on down. You can also get 1 point through the O relay. The O relay, you would think, is the out hole relay. But it is not. It is the 5-point relay. Okay, so when you score something that makes 5 points, that directs the 5-point relay to turn on, and then the 5-point relay will also start the score motor because it needs the score motor to count. When you score these, did you notice that it doesn't say anything about the score motor? There's no score motor switch. That one does, just to open it. Yeah, I guess the score motor, if it opens, you can't score any of that. But none of these are going to turn on the score motor because there's no relay turning on. Like if you hit the left kicking rubber or the pop bumper one, it's not going to turn on the score motor. F and G should not turn on the score motor. Yes, here's what turns on the score motor. W, B, K, O, 0, O, P, U, V, S, Z. Not F and not whatever the other one is for the pop bumper. But O does. That's the 5-point relay. Okay, so you score something that makes 5 points, right? The way they do that is they turn on the 5-point relay, which starts the score motor. And then the score motor starts turning, and it has an impulse cam that hits 5 times as it turns from home position to home position. So that switch will close 5 times. And since the switch is closed in line to the 1-point relay, as that motor closes, bam, 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 it will pulse the 1-point relay, bam, 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 5 times. That's why you don't have anything that scores 2 points or 3 points or 7 points. It's all 1, 5, 10, even numbers, or it can be 50, because you could pulse the 10-point relay 5 times, right? Now, on some games, they did come up with weird ways to make it score twice instead of once. So, like on your bonus, it does that a lot. And the way they usually would do that is just add another switch to the cam. So as the cam turns, this one switch closes, and then another one closes over here or something. So anyway, our 5-point relay is probably not stuck on. And then the last way is down here. As long as the Y relay hasn't opened, and if the X relay is just right, the X relay being the 10 times the target value control relay, and the Y relay being the 100 times the target value control relay. Did you read that? 100 times the target value. So depending on where that is, when you hit the a target on the roto unit, you get big time points. So some of the targets on the roto unit appear to give you 1 point, or some variation of 1 point. Yeah, Z is the roto target scoring relay. So it could be a switch stuck on the roto target. Probably not, but it could be. What I'm thinking it is one of these, because this would lock it on until this one opens on the first one's unit. But it could also be the right kicking rubber switch. Maybe it's sticking or something. Or the right pop bumper relay. Maybe it's sticking. It looked like one time I hit the right pop bumper and then it started buzzing real crazy. And one time I hit the right kicker and it started buzzing really crazy. All right, so Sherlock Holmes, clue number 2. The score did not advance whenever I turned the power off. So what does that mean? That means that the score reel was not pulled in. Well, why would that be? That could be because the switch on the in relay doesn't always make. So maybe that switch is a little bit wide, where sometimes it makes, sometimes it doesn't. And so since it never made the score reel pull in, the score reel couldn't open the switch that turned off the in relay. And then when we killed the power and the in relay went off, it did not advance the score reel because it wasn't anyway, but it did allow the 0 to 9 stepper unit to collapse because it did have it pulled in. So we need a black and white wire running off the in relay, and then the other side is red and white. Okay, that switch did look like it was adjusted a little wide. If you pulled in the relay, it looked like it touched it, but just barely. So I adjusted this switch closer. Now, you could have checked that by, this is first player, second player, third player, fourth player. That one switch scores for all 4 players. It just depends on which one of the player control relays is energized. So if we would have played a 2-player game and saw if it did the same thing for player 2, that would have proved that it must have been that switch. But it could also be this switch. You'd have the same exact problem. So I need to look at that one. So the black and white wire that connects on the AA relay with a yellow and red wire. All right, the AA one looked fine. And remember, we haven't done anything to the playfield yet. I don't even know if we're still in the middle of a game. Got flippers. Okay, I'm watching the score reel. Yeah, same exact thing. We're still at 126, so it did not score our point, and the 0 to 9 unit was stuck on just as before. So there's something going on there. But you know what? Like I said, we haven't even messed with the playfield yet, so we're trying to play like a halfway clean game. you really shouldn't do that, but I'm just trying to illustrate things for videos and make videos interesting. So we'll figure it out next time. I hope you enjoyed it so far. Make sure to give us a thumbs up. You can leave your comments down below on what you think the problem might be. Next video, we'll take the playfield and work on the bottom of it. And we're pretty close to cleaning up the top of it and bringing this sucker back. It's going to be beautiful. I can just see it coming. It's going to be amazing. We're going to have to order some targets and some stuff like that, but we get that stuff from Marco Specialties sometimes, and they're just right down the road. Or the Pinball Resource. They're good too. So leave your comments below. Let us know what you think so far. Make sure to give us a thumbs up for taking the trouble to film it for you. Make sure to check out my brother Donnie if you don't know about him. Our brother has a channel. The link is down below every video. We work on old pinball machines, arcade games, and jukeboxes. My brother Donnie works on old buildings, old vehicles, things like that. I'm over there with him on his channel sometimes. A fun time is had by all. So we will see you next time. I hope you've enjoyed the ride so far. What a fun game.